Good afternoon, and welcome to SHFM's Critical Issues Conference Series. My name is Eric Cooley, and I am the CIC Chair, and when I am not doing things for SHFM, I am the Director of Sales at PepsiCo. On behalf of the Critical Issues Conference Advisory Committee, we welcome you. With an emphasis on leaders, employees, and customers, SHFM is focusing the spotlight on people, the human side of hospitality, today and during the rest of the CIC series. Thank you so much for joining us today at the second installment of the CIC series. As we all know, this year has been a unique and challenging one for us within the industry and has affected us all differently. We have gone through unprecedented times, not only due to the pandemic, but with many social justice movements as well. We've always said that SHFM is like family, and in development of this conference, we wanted to focus on how we can work together and support each other to ensure we come out of these unique times as better people, leaders, wives, partners, husbands, friends, brothers, and sisters. Today's SHFM educational programming was developed by your peers. I want to say a tremendous thank you to the CIC Advisory Group for their contributions of an already very successful virtual series. This was a fantastic group who came together to create a terrific series dealing with critical and relevant issues. I want to say a special thank you to my co-chair, Sunita Devi, for her outstanding leadership to this group and her A+ broadcasting skills last week. I also want to say thank you to the generous CIC sponsors. These companies have stepped up to provide the resources we need to deliver outstanding educational events like this one. Thank you so much. If you haven't yet, I do so encourage you to explore the CIC Solution Center. What's in the Solution Center, you may be thinking? To name a few solutions you can explore: state-of-the-art equipment and services, unique food, beverage, and delivery options, integrated turnkey technology, and so much more. We'll put a link to the chat so you can bookmark and explore it later. Before we begin, of course, we have a few housekeeping notes. Please ask your questions throughout the session in the Q&A window. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end, so ask questions throughout the session in the Q&A window found in your toolbar. I see several attendees using the chat window, as we always do. Make sure to take time to say a friendly hello to your SHFM family. This year's CIC Advisory Group has added a charitable component to the conference by selecting World Central Kitchen as the recipient, an organization that deals in critical issues on a daily basis. Additionally, for every $10 donation you make, you will be automatically entered for a chance to win one of the several exciting raffle prizes, including appliances, gift cards, and more. Thank you all once again to our generous sponsors. All donations made via the CIC registration portal through 12 noon Eastern time on April 28th will be entered into the drawing. If you haven't donated yet and would like to, we'll add a link to the chat so you'll be able to donate, or you can visit the CIC website after the session. And lastly, this session is being recorded, so it can be played on demand. The recording will be available on SHM's website and YouTube channel later this week. We have some phenomenal speakers today in the second installment of the CIC series, Strengthening Ourselves. And to tell you more about the session and our speakers, it is my pleasure to introduce today's session host, Brittany Tacopino. Brittany is an experienced operations manager for JP Morgan Chase. With 18+ years in the hospitality world, she is a versatile leader in team management, client and employee experience, and developing operation procedures. She is a proud Penn State alum and a Peloton junkie. She is passionate about all things food and wine and hopes to travel her way through Italy to try it all. Brittany, over to you.
Thanks, Eric. And hello, everyone. I'm excited to be your host today. In today's session, we're going to hear about the importance of taking time to be well in order to work well for ourselves and our teams. How can we best support employees responsible for conveying a culture of hospitality as they themselves are adjusting to a new corporate environment? In just a moment, we're going to explore whole person health, well-being, and then a little later, we will hear about the significance of employee training, growth, and development in the new world of work. We have some exciting topics to cover today, and a lot of you will be able to take away for yourselves and for your teams. So first, I'm going to introduce Shauna McQueen, Regional Nutrition Strategy Manager with Guckenheimer, powered by ISS. Shauna is a registered dietitian, nutritionist, trained plant-based chef, and nutritionist strategist. She manages and consults on nutrition strategy and communications throughout the Northeast with a focus on Spotify, New York City. Over to you, Shauna.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today and to speak to you about whole person health. So Today, I want to talk to you about how adopting a whole person approach to well-being is not only great for us as individuals, but how it provides a framework for food service and hospitality organizations to not only stay relevant as the workplace is changing, but how it actually gives us a business edge and makes our services more desirable and more needed than ever. So let's dive in. First, what is whole person health? This is a buzzy phrase that's been popping up more and more recently, but I can promise you that this is more than a trend. Whole person health is an approach to well-being that acknowledges that our health is built by many different factors. Traditionally, we've considered health as either you're healthy or you're unhealthy, and this tends to focus specifically on physical health, but health and well-being actually exists on a spectrum, and it goes way beyond any kind of physical symptoms that we may be experiencing. So there is a nuance to being and feeling well that we miss out on when we're speaking strictly about being healthy or unhealthy, or if we're looking solely at physical health to try to paint an overall picture of our well-being. And this, for me, is why whole person health is so appealing, because it goes beyond traditional health approaches to recognize that physical health, where we tend to focus most of our efforts, is really just a piece of the puzzle. So whole person health acknowledges that our well-being is dependent on more than simply whether or not we are sick. It acknowledges that health and well-being are established through fulfillment and balance in multiple aspects of our lives. There are a few different models of whole person health with a little bit of variation in each one. Some include financial well-being, some include professional well-being, both certainly very important, but today we're going to focus on the 6 dimensions that you see on the screen. So physical, emotional, social, environmental, intellectual, and spiritual. Each of these dimensions is distinct, but at the same time, they're interconnected. So what's happening in one can affect what's happening in another. But let's take a look at each of them independently. First, physical. We already are pretty familiar with this one, but this dimension includes our diet, physical activity, sleep habits, our stress perception, and our genetic predispositions to certain health outcomes. Next, emotional. This includes our ability to identify and express how we feel, as well as establishing boundaries that we're comfortable with, our self-esteem, our ability to be resilient, and other factors that are related to our mental and emotional health, like how we experience stress, anxiety, and depression. Next, environmental. So the environmental dimension of wellness has a few different layers. So first, there is our immediate personal environment, where you live, where you work, your neighborhood. All of these have implications for your health and well-being. And then even beyond that, there's the well-being of our global environment, which includes protection of our natural resources and overall reduction of waste. Moving along, the social dimension. So this one's pretty self-explanatory, but includes our ability to meaningfully connect with others. And when it comes to our health, this is an important dimension too, because who we spend our time with, we tend to adopt their habits. So depending on who that is and those particular habits, this certainly has implications for our health and well-being also. The social dimension also includes your sense of belonging to a community. And if we're looking at the social dimension from a wider perspective, it includes using our actions to support social good. Next, spiritual. This to me simply means connecting to something beyond yourself. So maybe that is religion, maybe that is meditation, spending time in nature, whatever that maybe looks like for you is included in this dimension. And I also think the spiritual dimension is supported by living in alignment with your values. And then last up, intellectual. So we support this dimension of health by allowing ourselves to be creative and curious, maybe by learning a new skill or having a hobby that has nothing to do with our work, or having a stimulating conversation with somebody, maybe listening to a fascinating podcast. These are all ways that we can support the intellectual dimension. So while we may have a tendency to focus on the physical dimension the most, the truth is that inviting more balance into these other aspects of well-being can indirectly support physical health because they're related. And there is research to support how each of these dimensions of whole person health is associated with longevity and well-being when we foster them. but their importance is often overlooked. So the good news here is that that may be changing. In fact, the NCCIH, this is the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, a division of the NIH, just released a strategic 5-year plan devoted to whole person health research. So we are going to be seeing a lot more of this in the coming years, but let's talk about why it's important now. I think it's obvious that COVID just changed the well-being landscape. So much has changed, and so quickly it has become clear that our health and well-being is about so much more than what we typically include in the conversation. And I have a few numbers here to just help us conceptualize that. First is 9. 9 is the number of loved one or family members that are left grieving after every single COVID-related death. The scope of this loss is staggering, and it is affecting so many people. Next, 40%. 40 is the percentage of US adults who admit to suffering in terms of mental health or substance use since the pandemic began. And then lastly, 60. 60% of American adults have a current chronic condition. And in fact, 40% have 2 or more. And, what is particularly relevant for us is 80% of these chronic diseases are preventable through things like diet and lifestyle. So it is stressing our healthcare system, and it is hurting our workforce. Our approach to health in many ways has not been effective because we haven't been focusing on a preventative approach. Overall, as you can see, our health is getting poorer, even though we are dieting more and our medicine is advancing. So our circumstances have certainly changed as a result of the pandemic, but even beyond that, the life expectancy in the US has gone down the past 3 years. So for me, there is a major disconnect going on here. And I think the fact that we take such a narrow approach to well-being is partly to blame for that. We are not appropriately creating balance within our dimensions of whole person health. Everything is connected. So I think in some ways we are overvaluing the importance of diet and physical activity on our well-being, and these things certainly are very important. But I think our overemphasis on them that kind of takes the joy out of our relationship with movement and takes the joy out of our diet. So instead they become things on a list of to-dos that just stress us out and create additional tension that makes it even more difficult for us to change our habits. So how we feel emotionally, how we engage with our environments, the relationships that we have in addition to our diet and physical activity affect us on a cellular level. So we need to recognize this connection and celebrate it. And this is why I am so excited about the concept of whole person health catching on. In fact, there is some serious opportunity here for us because using a whole person health approach isn't just helpful for us as individuals, it gives us a framework to create stronger teams, stronger accounts, stronger businesses. This new awareness and attention on whole person health is actually great news for all of us in the food and hospitality industry, because if we can take this framework for whole person health and build it into our programming, we are doing more than serving great meals. We are nourishing people's well-being on a multi-dimensional level. And although this has been an extremely difficult year for the industry, our skills have actually never been more needed. But part of showing that value is being able to communicate about whole person health and these specific dimensions of wellness. And not only that, but how your current skill set already supports each one of them. And the good news for us here is that we can do this through food. Food plays a role in each and every dimension of whole person health. And for me, food comes to life in this whole person approach, because we're recognizing food beyond its nutritional profile. And for me as an RD, certainly nutrition is important, but these days that almost needs to be a given. Consumers and clients want more than that, and using a whole person framework around food and hospitality programming allows us to meet that need effectively. So for me, honestly, I feel like we should be viewing our entire industry from a whole person health lens moving forward. Quickly, I just want to outline a few ways that food plays a role in each dimension, and I want you to use this as a jumping off point to inspire your own whole person health audit. So physical, obviously, this we already know. A diet rich in whole foods and low in ultra processed foods supports our health. Great. Emotional. Okay, this is where it gets a little more interesting. Food shapes our mental and emotional health. This is what we call the food-mood connection. But our moods also drive our eating habits. So if we're stressed, we may seek out a certain food that we think is going to help to soothe that. When it comes to our emotional dimension, if we're looking specifically about food, there is a nostalgia component here. So foods that we grew up with or we associate with happy memories. Ooh, there's a thunderstorm happening. You probably might have just heard that thunder. But this dimension also includes our relationship with food and our bodies. So how are we helping people to make sure that that is a good relationship? And then environmental, of course, this refers to our personal food environment and foodscape. This is where things like choice architecture come into play, but there's a larger environmental perspective here of sustainability. Next, social. The act of sharing a meal is a bonding experience. So whether you're talking about a family or a team, it builds connection. We can also outline some social responsibility purchasing standards for ourselves, or make sure we're doing things like supporting small businesses or buying fair trade. All of that fits into this dimension. Next, spiritual. So making sure we are, again, purchasing ethically, but ensuring that our options are aligned with a variety of values and that we're helping people to invite mindfulness into their food approach. And then lastly, intellectual. So this piece is all about education and engagement. So providing cooking classes, nutrition webinars, sharing interesting stats or facts, and helping people to adjust to cooking more of their meals at home by making sure that they have the resources and skill set that they need to not only accomplish that, but hopefully enjoy that process a little bit too. So I just kind of wanted to share a few ways to inspire ideas for incorporating whole person health into your food strategy, but you can use this framework when you're thinking about things like workplace experience or any other areas of your business that you're focused on. But let's talk about how to make it actionable. Whole person health may seem difficult to build, but this framework gives you an easy way to do it because it breaks everything down into tangible actions for creating balance and allows you to use a really strategic approach to health and well-being. So I am challenging all of you guys to complete a whole person health audit, first for yourself, then for your team. How are you creating a culture of whole person health for your team? Next, do the same for your clients, and then for your overall business. And there may be a bit of overlap here, but for each category, write down 3 ways that you are already supporting that dimension of health. Again, a lot of these things we're already doing, but this is just showing us how to communicate about them a little bit differently so we can show some added value there. If you can't think of 3 things for one of the dimensions, it means that maybe that's one of the areas you want to put a little bit more attention on moving forward. But once you have those first 3 things you're already doing, do this exercise again and think about 3 things that you want to implement moving forward. You could do a short-term goal, a midterm goal, a long-term goal, but by the end of this, you've got 18 things that you are doing to support whole person health and 18 things that you're going to implement moving forward. So you've got this whole strategy surrounded around whole person health. So hopefully this helps to make it a little bit more tangible to you. And I am going to include my email here. So if anybody wants to continue the conversation on this, it's my favorite topic, so feel free to reach out. But to close, I just want to emphasize that every food we purchase, every meal we serve, and every event we host is an opportunity to support whole person health. So let's seize that opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Shauna, for sharing such an important and relevant topic. I really liked hearing what a whole person health is. We all kind of think we know, but how many other dimensions there are besides just physical, because that's, I know, what I focus the most on. And then just how food connects to each of these. Really a lot to take away, and super excited to get some question and answers. So please remember to drop them in a Q&A box in the toolbar below, and then we'll get to them towards the end. So next, I would like to introduce to you Adrienne Williams, Vice President of Inclusion and Human Resources with Compass Group. Adrienne has been with Compass Group for nearly 15 years and brings over 20 years of experience. She has held a variety of roles within Compass Group and has supported functions including the corporate office, procurement, healthcare, and education. Adrienne currently leads the inclusion strategy for Compass Group North America. Over to you, Adrienne.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm very encouraged to see that trend line go down. That's been very exciting, and we're right now at the cusp of, getting back to normal or redefining normal. I don't know that we'll necessarily ever, go back to normal, but how did we get here, and how do we move forward? So I'm going to approach today's, conversation from a review, revive, and reconnect. No conference is complete without a good alliteration or a Venn diagram, so you have to have one or the other. So I'm going to hit you with an alliteration. But before we really get into the heart of what I want to talk to you about today, I want to take a poll. And I'm very curious about, who I'm talking to today. So when we think about reentry and growth, I'm curious as to, are you more concerned about your own reentry and growth or that of your teams? So we have a poll that's going to pop up here in just a second. And I'll give you I'll give you about 30 seconds or so to decide. I very intentionally did not put both. I thought if I put both, people would gravitate towards that. So I want you to make one selection or the other. And we'll give you just a few more seconds to think about that. So again, whose reentry are you most concerned with? Are you concerned about your own reentry or your team's reentry? Okay. Let's take a look at the results. Teams, okay, great. Great, so that tells me that a lot of the people that I'm talking to today are back to work. So good for you, that's great news. And I can't say enough that, this last year, and I won't dwell on the past, but this past year has created challenges that we never thought we would have to lead through. And you can go to the next slide. We've had to, furlough positions or eliminate positions of, good workers, of good people. Sometimes we can compartmentalize it a little bit easier if, we hire someone, they can't do the job with training or coaching. But when we had to let go some of our best people, that was really difficult for us as leaders as well. So you had to hear the message. Some of us may have had to hear that message, but to deliver it was just as difficult. So, I definitely understand that. We've had to create solutions to manage through the pandemic, managing the fear of some of our team members, ensuring their health and well-being, managing through anxiety, stress, and isolation. I remember talking to some of my colleagues who live alone at the very beginning of the pandemic, and it was just heartbreaking to hear that, they hadn't seen a person in months, basically, because they were just, in their homes. And now we've been provided this little bit of hope of normalcy as the vaccine rolls out and that COVID trend line goes down. So we've definitely got some exciting times ahead. The pandemic really triggered some permanent shifts in how and where we work. Businesses are planning for a future where more people are working from home and traveling less for business, or they're being replaced with technology. And all of these modifications basically mean that workers may not be able to go into the same jobs that they did before the pandemic, even after a lot of the U.S. population gets vaccinated and that businesses start to reopen. More specifically, there's three trends that we're seeing to persist to varying degrees even after the pandemic has, kind of subsided. And the first of those is hybrid remote working. And what we're seeing there is that working could continue by up to 25% of people continuing to work from home 3 to 5 days a week. And what that will, impact us by is by, we will see, less demand for mass transit, less demand for retail and for restaurants. One of those other trends is around e-commerce and that last mile delivery. We're seeing that continue to a rate of 2 to 5% times of what it had been pre-pandemic. My kids talk about DoorDash like it's their favorite meal because they're having DoorDash for dinner, and those trends won't go away. And then that last one is going to be AI and automation. And what I mean by that are ghost kitchens, self-service kiosks and apps, delivery services, delivery robots, service robots. And we were already putting some of those into place in our locations prior to the pandemic. And again, many of those are going to continue after those trend lines go down. I was reading a report in the McKinsey Global Institute, and they talked about 20% of business travel won't come back, and about 20% of workers could end up working from home indefinitely. So all these shifts mean there's going to be fewer jobs at hotels, fewer jobs at restaurants, food service, downtown shops. In addition to all these existing trends that we're seeing, up to 25% more workers they are estimating to potentially need to switch occupations. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and what we really have to think through is, what training can we be providing now to help your employees be more successful as they make these changes through work. And there's two sides to this coin, right? There's the employer and the employee. And we, as the employer, there's a lot of employers on this call, there's a lot of headwinds. We are in a position where we're wondering, will our teams come back? Between the CARES Act and the rescue plan, a lot of our teams have been provided with paid leave programs, tax credits, extended unemployment, and other benefits for not working. So the looming question is, will our teams want to come back? Because some of the benefits that they're receiving, they're getting paid more now not to work. And that's a really hard sell for us, because we essentially have to go to our teams and say, hey, can you come back to work, make less, and then go get a babysitter, potentially. So that's a very hard sell. As the employee, they've had a ton of opportunities in the last 12 to 18 months that they've been out of work. They're at 12 months now, but by the time some of our locations come back, it's going to be 18 months. And they've had the opportunity to go through gig jobs, train for roles to kind of level up their skills for free or low-cost learning platforms. I did a Google search on, just free leadership training, and just the sheer number of opportunities and searches that came up was just astounding. There was a skillful.com article that came out that highlighted platforms for free courses and low-cost certification programs through, Allison, Coursera, edX. There was an Inc.com program that highlighted 9 different platforms for free leadership courses. And then LinkedIn Learning has something now that they call Skill Path by LinkedIn. And these aren't, endorsements of these platforms, but just the sheer number of opportunities that employees now have to level up their skills. And what that means is, one, we need to be more flexible. We have to show them more flexibility in their shifts and in their roles, because ultimately our people may not be, they may not want to come back into the position that they left 12 to 18 months ago. The thing is, some of the workers don't often realize that the skills that they have for one job can be easily transitioned to another. But the fact is, even if they do realize it, if we as employers don't realize that too, it's still going to be really hard for them to, get back to work. Many of our recruiting processes depend on relevant experience or degrees to find candidates, but the people that are best fit for these roles may be from different industries that we've never considered before. So, for example, food service workers have about 70% of the skills that are required for a customer service role. So they can go get a customer service position and then level up their skills that they may be lacking, very easily through some of these platforms that I just mentioned. Conversely, there's other industries that we could be recruiting from. So we have to start thinking differently about how and where we recruit. There's a lot, I think, that we still are managing through. I don't know that we have all the answers. We are, recognizing that we and our teams have just been through a lot, and we understand that the world and the workplace has changed. And our responsibility now is to meet our people where they are, so we can both satisfy their needs and the business needs, as we continue to redefine normal. So I look forward to talking to you more through the Q&A. And Brittany, I think I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. So yeah, a lot of really interesting things, just hearing about the employer versus the employee, a lot to think about as we're transitioning back into the new normal, right? It's the ever evolving, and just really how we're going to find the talent and keep talent. So all right, we're going to jump into Q&A. I see some questions coming through, so please continue to put them in the Q&A box in the box below on the toolbar, and we will jump in. So there we go. All right, so first, I will start with Shauna. So what specific things do you do to ensure you are connecting and filling the segments of your whole person health?
Yeah, I think part of it is giving yourself permission to kind of go out of your routine in some ways. I think, it's great if you try to work out, 6 days a week, but I think, when you're thinking about whole person health, it allows for a little bit of flexibility because, maybe what might nourish you most on that particular day is sitting and listening to a record or, cooking a lovely meal. There are a lot of ways to nourish yourself. And I think being able to tune in and listen to your body and kind of like build up that connection can help you to make those decisions. But at the same time, we know that the more that you eat whole foods, the more that you do try to move your body, the more that you manage your stress and you get a good night's sleep, that it is a lot easier for you to make other decisions that next day to support your whole person health. So people may find that they can get into a cycle where everything is kind of in the flow, they feel great, they're eating healthy, they're working out, all of a sudden something happens and it throws them off. So I think, thinking about whole person health, it's about giving yourself permission to experience that. And again, use different tools to nourish yourself in that moment.
Great. Yeah, totally agree. A lot of reminding yourself. Okay, so for Adrienne, what are you most encouraged by as teams re-enter the office and the workforce?
Gosh, what am I most encouraged by? We are a very social company. So just being able to see people, having those connections, we're very relationship driven. That's that first step, but just talking to our people, seeing people live, that's just been the best. I'm in the office now, so it's been great to get those connections. There's only so much you can do, on Zoom. It's been a great platform. But to be able to connect with people, go down to the cafes and just kind of get back to that normal space, that's my whole person health. I'm just going back to Shauna. That that's made me feel so much better, and I'm so much more productive now, just being around people and being in this environment.
Great. And then kind of just, I'll stay with you, Adrienne. What kind of strategies do you think will be most effective in attracting those employees back to work?
That's a great question. Because they are making a lot of money by not sitting at work, I think we have to, kind of help them see the future. So unemployment's going to run out eventually. So can we start talking to our teams now about, hey, don't forget, how are you doing? If you haven't connected with them in 12 months, it's going to be really hard. So we needed to start 12 months ago first, just, connecting with them, checking in on them, see how they are, because that's half the battle. You can't lose those connections and then think, they'll be easily recruited back into your spaces. And then once you do that, are you doing anything like retention bonuses or return bonuses? Because there has to be something that you can use to attract them to come back into work. And reestablish those normalcies. So one of the things that we're doing is putting a little bit higher value on those returning associates, because there's just less of an onboarding that you have to do. We'll probably have to recruit externally as well, but what can we do to our established teams to get them back into the workplace? And is there anything that we can do to promote them within the organization for that next step? Because those are the people that, they know our business, they know our clients, and what can we do to get our arms around them.
Great. This one is about whole person health, but I also think it could relate in a sense just about to both of you about the generational gaps between whole person health support and understanding it. You know, this definitely feels like it's more aligned to the millennials, the Gen Zs, but how do you get the boomers and the Gen X on board too? And I think that can relate in a way too with attracting talent, and not just how do we kind of bridge those gaps? Wait, Shauna, do you want to start off?
Sure. This is, I think, where it's very important for leadership to kind of model the value that they're placing on whole person health. And, you know, just because there may be a slight difference between generations in terms of maybe asking for mental or emotional support, doesn't mean that another generation couldn't also benefit or might need that as well. So I think part of it is making sure that people know what resources are available to them for the first thing. And then, you know, helping to support them if that is something that they choose to engage with. And part of this is accepting that people aren't robots. You know, if we are coming into work, it is accepting us, you know, as our whole selves beyond, you know, just how we might be professionally, although certainly we will be professional. But it's recognizing that, you know, what people have going on at 9 to 5 is really just a piece of what's going on in their overall lives.
Yeah, I would agree. Having empathy for people, you know, as they go through, you know, life, this is a huge transition for people. So I completely agree. You know, just giving people grace and, you know, the resources. Do you have an employee assistance program? You know, can they use their time off for anything versus having to, you know, prove why they need off? You know, some of those little touches can go a long way with, you know, helping to support your people.
Great. A lot of good takeaways. Adrian, how can people that never left the office be more relatable and sensitive to the people that are returning, those returning coworkers? So the people that have always been there, and now we got people coming back, you know, that's got to be a challenge on both sides too.
Yeah, I would imagine so, because you're going to have different feelings. You know, some are feeling, well, I had to work, I, you know, couldn't stay home, and, you know, having those conversations and having those courageous conversations, just bringing people together, you know, just to talk, you know, whether it's at stand up, you know, bridge the gap, make sure people know that it's okay to have these conversations, and you know. There's so much, I can't stress conversations enough. I mean, I don't think it's rocket science. You just have to know your people and give them a safe space that it's okay to have these conversations, and it's okay to have, you know, questions about, you know, what's different, what's changed in your workspace and within our lives.
Yes, very true. Shauna, can you provide some examples of strategies companies are using to create a whole person health environment for their teams?
Sure. I think a lot of this is related to, for one thing, workplace experience. So thinking about not just something like food, but looking at the bigger picture of what is the overall environment like that somebody is coming into? Like, how is the air quality? Is there access to green space? Is there a quiet place where they can kind of get their thoughts together? And are they, you know, truly feeling valued? Are the relationships that you have being is the importance of the relationships that you have with your teammates really being communicated in a meaningful way? So I think that's one thing, thinking about the full experience of somebody and not just expecting them to come in, do the work, and that's it, but looking way beyond that. And then the other thing is, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more different positions like director of well-being or, you know, well-being managers being incorporated into the workforce to continue to implement all this stuff in a more meaningful way, because again, there's a need for it.
Yeah, definitely. And how would you then, I guess, on the flip side, not just the work environment for these people that are going to continue to be working from home, how does the employer connect that whole person health at home from the office if your manager's in the office?
Totally. So a lot of employers are starting to really expand their virtual wellness offerings. So whether that is, nutrition webinars, wellness webinars, meditation options that you can kind of jump into, all of that is helping to support, whole person health. But then again, after and through COVID, employers are reconsidering their entire benefit structure. So they're looking at things a lot differently. So it helps to support that hybrid environment of people who are maybe popping in every once in a while, or, are even shifting to a full-time work from home model.
Very good. Let's see. How are companies finding skilled labor again for hospitality roles or culinary roles? I guess.
How are they finding?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's changed very much. There's a lot of different platforms. We really have to go out and source talent. I was talking to a recruiter the other day, and one of the things that I found great, she was like, you can't just post and pray. You really have to source talent, and the best talent are working. So that's not changed from now and 12 months from 12 months ago. That's still the case, and that was very much the case pre-pandemic. I would say definitely put your arms around your diverse talent. Recruiters are very aggressive right now, so if you have people in your locations that make sure you're paying attention to your people. That is so important right now. So. Nothing's changed.
Don't want to lose them.
Exactly. You don't want to lose anyone, but especially your diverse leaders. It's they're out there. They're banging down our doors, and if you've got good people, you got to hang on to them.
Yeah. Well, it's as much as there's a lot of people looking for jobs, it's still very competitive, and in keeping your team close, but also looking outside. So good advice. Okay. I think I did that. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through here. Do you see remote roles increasing in the industry?
I do. I've had a lot of conversations with leaders where, a year ago, a particular position had to be in a particular market, and that is not the case anymore. Everyone has, lived in this virtual space and been successful. And then we as leaders travel quite a bit, so you can travel when you need to. But very much so, there's going to be a lot more remote working and virtual learning, virtual meetings. That is going to continue. You'll definitely see that.
What type of training would you recommend for the employees that are coming back to either new responsibilities or positions?
Depends on the position, of course. There's we've really ramped up our safety training in our culinary spaces, leadership training, how to lead inclusively, how to lead inclusive teams. We're doing a lot on unconscious bias because, our teams are diverse teams, especially in food service. We're about 60% diverse. So, can you lead those employees with respect and leading with respect? That's another big training, dignity and respect that we have, where we lead with respect being a basic human right and not something that needs to be earned. So a lot on the behaviors and less about the skill. We can teach people how to cut vegetables. We need to know, can people work with our clients, whether they're students in K-12 or healthcare. You're seeing people at their worst in healthcare. Are you the type of person that can work in that space? So that's really where we need to focus is, can you hire for heart and train for skill?
Great. Yeah, no, very, very good. Okay, I think we'll wrap it up. Unless either of you, do you have any final words or any final comments for everybody?
I would just say, thank you for allowing me to come and speak today. We're still in this very much unknown space when it comes to talent and training, and when things will get back to normal. So it's been great. Thank you.
Great.
Just like to also echo the same. Thank you all so much. This has been a joy to be a part of, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with people on whole person health.
Yes, great. Thank you both. I've definitely taken a lot that I'm gonna, take back to my teams and my friends, and look forward to connecting with you probably in the future. Eric, I will pass it over to you for some final words.
Thanks, Brittany. Wow, what amazing, amazing content. Thank you so much for Adrian and Shauna for an outstanding session. And Brittany, thank you for hosting this session and keeping us track. A lot of questions and Q&A there, so your work was definitely cut out for you. Overall, amazing insight about whole person health. I don't know if anybody had a chance to see the questions, but a lot of questions coming into whole person health. And I'd love to learn about how it affects us on a day-to-day basis on our jobs and our homes, and really exciting things coming in the future, and glad to see a larger focus on this, especially in today's landscape. Let's get those audits going. And Adrian, amazing details on re-entry trainings and jobs fist. I can't believe how quickly we're talking about job shifts and how quickly the pandemic has made some of those changes happen at a much faster pace. Following today's events, you will receive a conference evaluation via an email. Please be sure to take a moment to complete this very important survey. Listen, it helps us a lot to understand what you liked, what you don't like, so we can make sure we're delivering content that is exciting for you all in the future. And lastly, before we sign off, I do want to remind everyone about upcoming SHFM events. Don't miss the final installment of the SHFM 2021 CIC series, Connecting with Customers, on Wednesday, April 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. The CIC special interest sessions for operators and young professionals are on May 4th and 6th. Even though CIC is ending soon, SHFM will continue to offer events all year long. Join us on May 13th for the Reconstituting the Future Food Service Workforce virtual event. And last but not least, please save the date for the national conference, December 6th to 8th, at the beautiful Omni Amelia Island Resort in Florida, where I know I personally cannot wait to regather with the SHM family in person with adult clothes on and a couple cocktails. So we're looking forward to it. So to make it easy, we're going to put the link in the SHFM events page in the chat so you can all find details about these events and register in the future. Again, thank you very much for all of the panelists. Thank you for the time that you've all given us, and we hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.